It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
I want to talk about the 30-year-olds because this is the part. We've got the foundation poured. We've got, so the concrete's there, the footings are there. We got to frame the walls on this thing. We've got a house that of our financial independence that we're building. Your 30s is the stage now where we will be putting the structure on top of this thing. So I want to talk about first stability. This is, you should be doing all the things we covered for the 20-year-olds. You should have accomplished already under stability, meaning this is you're not having any trouble paying your bills. You're not living paycheck to paycheck. You understand debt. You have healthy financial ratios, and then you're establishing sound financial habits.
Yeah, just said again, healthy financial ratios. Your housing does not exceed more than 25% of your gross income. Your auto payments or auto debt doesn't exceed 8% of your gross monthly income. And then you recognize that credit cards should have a zero balance. If you're doing that, you've kind of covered the stability that you should have learned inside of your 20s.
And you're also not leaving behind the risk management issues.
That's
this is your emergency reserves. This is if you have children, having some estate documents for them. Life insurance, if somebody's counting on your income. We like term, by the way, without going too deep into it. And then making sure you even have disability insurance, or at least checking the box on it.
Disability is one that really caught me, because what I recognize is in our 20s, we feel invincible.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to be honest, in our 30s, we kind of still feel invincible. But now there are other people counting on us, so we have to come to the reality that maybe we're not. So making sure you do have those correct risk measures in place is huge, and that's how you're going to know in your mind, okay, I've done the stability piece, now I can start thinking about the strategy piece.
So pivoting to strategy, here's the thing. Saving 20 to 25%. I'm willing to give the grace to the 20-year-olds that this is probably an aspirational goal because remember, we talked about you have to crawl, walk, and then you run. I will tell you, by the time you're in your 30s, you need to be saving 20 to 25%. Yep. It's no longer aspirational. You should definitely be at the strategy phase or level 2 of where you are in your walk towards financial independence.
Yeah, you said it perfect in pre-show, Brian. You said it's not a goal. Now it's a habit.
Yep.
And the reason it's habit is because this is kind of the last stop on the easy money train.
So let's scare them a little bit with actual numbers on this, is because we know 20-year-olds know that their money is worth 88 times over, meaning every dollar they save or spend has the potential by the time they're 65 to be the equivalent of $88. We also know from the previous slide and the drop in rate of returns that you expect as you get older, you take risks down. It's $44 for a 25-year-old who spends $1. What happens to people in their 30s?
Yeah, so once you get to 30, your wealth multiplier is actually 23. So now that's still super, super exciting. What that means is every dollar you save at age 30 can turn into $23 by the time that you turn 65. So there's still a lot of juice. But look at what happens as you move through your 30s. And again, if you want to go see this, go out to our website, moneyguide.com, go to our resource page. This is actually a resource available for you guys out there. You can download it, share it with friends. We want you to have it. But look at what happens as the wealth multiplier moves through time. It starts at 23 when you're 30. Well, by the time you get to 35, it drops to 12. And by the time it gets to 39, now you're in single digits. It's down to 8. And so when you hear that, you might be thinking, oh, well, that's sad. That stinks. That's not... You should be thinking more about, okay, have I done the hard work in my 20s? Because this is where it gets really exciting. If you're a 30-year-old who really busted in your 20s, and maybe you've saved up $100,000 by the time you get to 30, which is incredible, that $100,000, without you saving one more dollar, has the ability to turn to $2.3 million.
It really is the last stop on easy compounding growth. So because you'll notice once you get into your 40s, you don't see double digits anymore on this. So that's why pay attention. We want compounding interest to work for you. So it's important to get to work. Now, we said this in pre-show, and I think it's worth, because this is why we say it's the last stop. Still, even a 35-year-old, that's less than what you have to fund on a Roth IRA to be a millionaire, meaning $500 a month. So it's at $452. It's still possible. I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed thinking we're poo-pooing the opportunity to become seven-figure wealthy, but it is one of those things you just need to be deliberate. Let your money work for you because it's the last stop.
At 36 years old, all you have to do is max out your Roth IRA and you're on your way to being a millionaire by the time you're 65. Now, I think that's pretty powerful.
It is powerful, especially because the next point is that you are now 10,000 hours. You're getting traction in your career at this point, and that's why we think the strategy's there, is because you do have the hours put in. You're no longer learning your trade. It's no longer a job. Hopefully now you're working in a career. Make that happen. Make that be something that is an asset towards your financial success.
Yeah, I think a really big indication that you are in this strategy phase is that it's not just a job. You said it perfectly. There's actually more to what you're doing on a daily basis, and you're actually using that to move you forward. And then I think the other thing that psychologically happens in our 30s is that now you begin to say no, not out of necessity, but out of discipline.
Yeah.
In your 20s, you have to say no to a lot of stuff because you just can't afford it. You don't have the money.
Exactly right.
In your 30s, maybe you do have the money. You say, no, I'm not going to buy the luxury car because I have other goals. I'm not going to increase the house because I have other goals. You make those decisions out of discipline instead of out of necessity.
And it also keeps you, don't keep up with the Joneses. Don't look at Joe Blow down the street because Joe Blow is probably broke, crying at night, putting himself to sleep. Save the sexy cars for when you're a little bit older. You need those dollars working for you. That army of dollar bills is so powerful. Don't mess it up. And this is also the part, you said it best, when we did about the 20s. How consistent are you, Bo? Because there's going to be a chance for you. A lot of people, you said it, a lot of your friends started saving like a Roth IRA or started funding it partially in their 20s, but then you look at them when they're 33 years old and they still have the same funding levels. Don't do that. This is your chance to actually be consistent with your savings goals, but also be consistent with your consumption. Don't let somebody, just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Love that.
Number 3. Security. This is level 3 of where you are with wealth. Security. This is hopefully, remember I told you guys the cuss word of budgeting. Nobody likes budgeting, but you're hopefully in your 30s. If you're already saving the 20 to 25%, you can now graduate to a cash management system. Now you're using what we call forced scarcity. As you get pay raises, you're setting up the automated funding system so that it continues to expand your opportunities towards financial independence.
Now, you may be saying, Brian, well, that sounds a lot like strategy. You're talking about forced scarcity and that sort of thing. Why on earth would you put that into security? Because one of the things that does happen in your 30s, a 30-year-old is very different than a 39-year-old. If you know that you have forced scarcity happening, if you know you're saving the 20 to 25%, then maybe it's okay to do other things, to spend in other ways, and not have any of that guilt of saying, oh, am I doing what I'm supposed to do, or do I have my money going where it needs to be going? If you have forced scarcity in place, it frees you a little bit to have the security that it's okay to spend for whatever the thing you want to spend for may be.
Yeah, because you're hopefully, like I said, stage 3 is you're not sweating the small stuff anymore. And the reason part of that's happening, and I think this is probably an indicator of success, is it's likely you might be hitting comfortable range with your income.
Yeah.
I mean, that means your income is over $75,000 a year. That is the threshold when they've done all the research. Happiness, because the basics are covered. So let's just make sure that we are doing good things with that.
Yep.
You are probably also at the stage now that you've, as we call it, bought the farm. You got the house, the kiddos, the spouse.
Yep.
So you need to be, we can also call it, that's the nice way of saying it. We also call it the messy middle. So it's okay if you feel uncomfortable or you feel like there's not enough money, not enough hours. You are in the messy middle, and that's completely okay in this stage as well.
Now, remember, in your 20s, as you're building your army of dollar bills, you're getting your gang of misfits together, or as you said, the A-team, the specialists. Now in your 30s, hopefully your army is starting to actually look like an army. You're starting to see it grow and grow. So now the size of your portfolio is getting to where you're at some meaningful levels. It's not just what you can scrap together on the side.
That's exactly right. And then what's the if we talk about FOO, financial order of operations, how many of these things should be accomplished in your 30s?
Yeah, so obviously in your 20s, if you're doing it right, you want to be hitting 1 through 5. We think in your 30s, this is probably where steps number 6 and 7 happen. And just to jog your memory, step number 6 is maxing out retirement plans. So not just getting the match, not just doing your Roth, but now you're actually maxing out the simple IRA, maxing out the 401k, whatever that may be. And not only are you just building tax and pre-tax assets or in post-tax or in tax-deferred assets or tax-free assets, you're also possibly even opening up like a brokerage account and saving in that third tax bucket, and you're beginning to look at accumulating some sort of tax diversification.
And a good part of security, because we do want you to be keeping track, so this is not all just dreams floating around, that you're actually keeping charts of things. Net worth statement. This will let you, because how are you to keep track if you're maxing out retirement options, or how much is tax deferred, after tax, or tax free? Net worth statement is going to be your friend, so don't blow that opportunity. And then that leads to stage 4 of your walk towards the steps of wealth is freedom.
Yep.
Financial independence. Now look, this is one of those things, we're in our 30s. This seems highly aspirational. I don't think there's a lot of people that are actually at, where your money is working for you completely, meaning replacing expenses, replacing what you make. But it is one of those things where we can at least start talking about this.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting, you've heard us talk about this before, but we think when it comes to building your army of dollar bills, there are sort of 3 phases to know that your army is where it's supposed to be. Phase number 1 is your army has gotten so big that it actually makes more than you can save in a year. So
Yeah.
if you're saving $10,000 a year, but one day you see that your portfolio made $10,000, you're like, holy cow,
Yeah.
it put away more money than I did. That's phase number 1. Phase number 2 is that your portfolio actually makes more than you spend in a year. So if you know, hey, I spend $2,000 a month, you recognize, well, my portfolio made $24,000 this year. Holy cow. And the third phase, it actually replaces your income. It actually grows to the point to where it works literally harder than you work to generate wealth for you and your family.
So in the 30s, because you're saying since there's 3 phases of wealth, you're saying that number 1 is probably the box
Probably
could
the
be
one that
checked,
you're gonna be hitting.
meaning that your army of dollar bills has reached the critical mass size where it's big enough to where likely in a good year it can grow more than what you likely saved
That's exactly
through
right.
contribution.
Yep.
So that's a powerful thing and really good stuff. And that leads to level 5 or stage 5 of your walk towards which level of wealth are you is abundance. And this, Bo, I still don't know that a lot of 30-year-olds have reached, because abundance means money. You're just on a different relationship level with money. You don't worry about it. You don't have to think about it. It takes on a different meaning at this point.
Look, I don't want to engage the trolls, and I'm nervous with what I'm going to say. We didn't talk about this in pre-show prep, but I have some counterparts who they aim to achieve financial independence in their 30s. They're part of the FIRE movement. They want to exit the workforce incredibly early. What I think is really interesting, if someone who falls in that camp, odds are you're probably just going to stop at the financial freedom phase. You're probably going to stop at the, okay, well, I can pay my bills and do my things. There's a chance if you are exiting that early and trying to achieve abundance in your 30s, it's going to look a little bit different than what we define as true financial abundance.
Well, I think also it's one of those things, because I'll group 4 and 5, the freedom and abundance together in this, is that there's some pretty popular bloggers. I've even followed them for a while. They did this when they were in their 30s.
Yep.
And then you know what happened? The messy middle kind of whooped them a little bit, and the fact that kids blow everything up. Kids kind of blow. So that's the thing. I would just challenge my 30-year-olds. You don't know how much your life is going to change between your 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yep.
So think of this as you want to make sure you're putting all the steps in your plan of action into effect, but you're probably not fully at abundance yet.
But in your 30s, you start recognizing it's possible. In your 20s, abundance is just sort of this pipe dream. But in your 30s, you just start seeing, man, this is something I can obtain, I can achieve. I've just got to stay the path and keep doing the good work.